So you've touched upon Harry Potter. I want to talk about what your the Hagrid the retro Hagrid face meme that you've probably seen.
Yeah, I've kind of had this mentioned a couple of times. That doesn't. Yeah, carry on. Yes, sir.
Well, I kind of want to know. For me, that Philosopher's Stone game was amazing. You know, I mean, I've loved Harry Potter since I was a child. I remember reading the book for the first time. Year 6 I would have been. We read it as a class, and it's been a massive part of my life since then. And I know for a lot of our listeners, like the games have been amazing. So for me, you know, getting to talk to someone who's worked on them is awesome. You know, this is great for me. But that image of Hagrid, it's become such a, I don't know, like a pivotal image from our childhood. It's like it's like a meme that takes you instantly straight back. Yeah.
It's like so bad, it's good. It's kind of got a weird kind of cool to it.
Well, I don't know whether you know, but on the new the name's going to escape me. But on the new Quidditch game that's come out for the PS5, you can actually have that face on there, so it's still insanely relevant today. And the fact that it's, you know, it will continue to be relevant, you know, decades from now, because of how.
And you couldn't have planned that. You couldn't have. It just
it's just happened, and it's just
does no. Well, say the story of me and my association with Potter. Well, it was my 34th birthday, and I was still working at Acclaim Teesside. We were working on Shadowman 2, and actually, Guy had bought me the first 2 Potter books, The Philosopher's Stone, Chamber of Secrets, and I read them and found them absolutely delightful. They kind of reminded me of the best books, British kind of fiction books that I ever read when I was a kid, kind of thing. Because most fiction books when you were a kid in libraries were like, here's another boy who gets a pair of football boots, and it was like, I'm into Star Wars, you know, sort of thing. It's like, that's not doing it for me.
It was like Lord of the Rings, but easier to read.
Yeah, exactly.
And less singing.
Sort of and I thought they're absolutely delightful and amazing, and I'm really grateful for it. So anyway, started looking in kind of like is sort of like this. It would be like May 2000, and we're in this situation where, looking at the way Teesside had gone, Darren and Jason were the founders of the company. They'd left to set their own company. And normally, when the founders of somewhere leave, that's a thing that sort of says, it's not going to be the same anymore. So just keep your options open. And I could see where we were going to go with Shadowman 2. We'd set them all up, but it was kind of time to move on. Because one of the other things as well for me is, once I left Core, I didn't sleep in my own bed during the week for 13 years. I basically would, the last weeks at Core, I was working 7 days a week, stupid hours and all this kind of stuff, because I was literally on the doorstep. So when I got the job at Teesside, it was like, I will live in a flat up there for a week, come back on a Friday night, home, I'm with the family. And once I start hitting the M1 to head home, nobody's going to touch me. So I had a more balanced life after you know, kind of like moving 130 miles away, because I could then spend evenings working, and then when it came to Saturday and Sunday, I had the time off. And so I've been doing that for sort of like 5 or 6 years at Teesside. Lovely bunch. And like, okay, I think we'll move on to something. So I went off initially and got a job at Infogram in Manchester.
Oh, nice.
To work on a Superman game for the Xbox that I convinced them that they didn't need. My colleague,
you convinced them they didn't need the game you were working on for them.
Yeah, so they hired me. I came on board, and this was a new Superman game for the new Xbox, and they were building up a new team. So I got together the proposal, put it together, had the brilliant fortune to meet with the editors and writers of the Superman comic, because this was based on the Superman comic. And there is a difference between Superman as a comic book character and Superman as an animated character, which sounds like there's a plan. It's just TV writers can't be bothered to adopt the lore of the comics. They will kill people and do other bits and pieces. So there's this kind of a thing, but in the comics they don't. So this was based on the comics. And I'm kind of working on it, and then sort of like, as I'm kind of delving into this, I've found out that, in fact, Infogram at their Sheffield office, which was the old Gremlin Graphics building, they were already in full flow building a Superman game based on the animated series. So it was like, can I go over and see those guys and see what they're doing? So I met Rob, the producer, and they had this perfectly brilliant animated series Superman game. And I was like, you are solving 99.9% of the problems that I'm solving for the comic book version for this new Xbox, and I haven't got a team. So came back, Tim, my boss, and like, Tim, why are you making a Superman game? You're going to give me millions of dollars and build up a team to do this, and you're already making one over there. Went, yeah, I kind of wondered about this kind of thing. Maybe we ought to go down to London. So we hopped on the train down to London. We went into his boardroom with two lovely people from kind of marketing or something like that kind of thing. He said, right, okay, why are you making two Superman games? Better give Rob some money to put it on the Xbox. It's got an S on the box. It's not like it's there's that much difference really, sort of thing. It was like, I'll happily take your budget and make a team and do the Superman game, but it's kind of kind of crazy. And they were like, yeah, we were wondering why we were doing that too. So we agreed there and then we'd can the project. So we're then sailing up the back up to Manchester on the train, and Tim's like, I'm so sorry, I'll hide you under the kind of wrong pretense. Work with us on the Looney Tunes games and all that. I was like, well, actually, see, Tim, I've just had an interview with EA, and they've offered me to become lead designer on Harry Potter. Because in the meantime, my colleague Guy had gone down, met with EA, became creative director on Harry Potter, and got in touch with me and went, Simon, do you want to come down here? Because I need a lead designer. So broke this news to Tim on the train. There was kind of a look of relief. He went, yeah, EA were really, really nice. I interviewed with them a little while ago, and they were lovely. I was like, yeah, they are. So, well, if you're happy, I was like, yeah, I'm happy. I'm ever so sorry. I went, don't mind. Whatever.
He's thinking you're going to go redundant because he's like, I don't have a job for you anymore now.
Exactly.
And you're telling him this, and he's thinking, no,
so
thank God for that.
Yeah, I'm bored in the Hogwarts Express. The irony being that 18 months later, Tim, I think for various different reasons, it didn't work out at Manchester. He actually came and was working on EA on the floor below us at Chertsey, sort of thing.
Oh,
so
that's
we
nice.
Later and stuff like that kind of thing. But yeah, it was just one of those kind of. It's a wonderful little kind of thing. They had this beautiful office overlooking the canals in Manchester, and I just remember the day that myself and Jane, my wife, came up to have a look, and they went, "Oh yeah, and here's the new Xbox controller," and it was like this big.
Yeah.
In comparison
to everything else,
we've been playing with things that were all made for tiny Japanese hands. It was like, what? I have to be a linebacker to just get to the thumbstick. But yeah, so that's how my kind of route in to Potter was. When I went down there, had the biggest interview of my life. It was about 8 or 9 guys sat around the table firing me off questions. I obviously knew Potter because I'd come to it as a fan. And actually all those guys I ended up working with, and the loveliest bunch. So yeah, October of 2000, I went and joined Potter, lead designer. The way that it was kind of set up was the core of it was actually the Bullfrog team that did all the sort of theme games and stuff like that kind of thing, EA Chertsey. And the plan was that there was the movie coming out of Philosopher's Stone, and already EA had got Argonaut on the PlayStation 1 Philosopher's Stone, which is where Hagrid comes from. And then No Wonder out in Seattle were doing the Game Boy Advance and PC games. They were building up the team internally at Chertsey with an eye to do the next gen, which is PlayStation 2 and GameCube games, but they would be delivered like in a year later. So we were working to, I think, a year's deadline for the first Potter movie, and then 2 years for the next gen version. So one of the things was I was starting to build up a Philosopher's Stone timeline and adventure, taking all the stuff that I kind of learned from Shadow Man and stuff like that kind of thing, and bringing that to bear. How do you structure an adventure? But the other thing was, guys, can you have a look at the stuff that's being done out of house? And one of the things was they kind of all set off, and one of the things that Guy and myself both realised was the fact that with all the will in the world, the license wasn't being taken quite as seriously as it was. So but at that point, it was new, it was magic, so you could do anything. So the games were in this state that they were reflective of Harry Potter, but they were doing certain things that you go, yeah, that's not exactly in the book. But of course, it was that sort of thing of, we've only got the books to reference and a few little bits of merchandise that are off the books, and it's magic, so you can do anything. So one of the things that Guy and I did for the greater part of the first year became what we termed the fiction police. having to guide and work with the guys at Argonaut and the guys at No Wonder to go, no. This is where the story comes from. This is what Joe Rowling wants. This is what she's put in. You can't have a spell that just teleports. You can't just have a spell that does these things because there are no precedents in the book. And we got kind of like in that kind of like, okay, you just can't have trolls appearing here because reasons. There has to be a reason for it. So, it was that kind of thing of gradually steering these games in and bringing those initial games in there. And so that was kind of our involvement of guiding and steering. The guys at No Wonder on the PC, they did a beautiful looking game for the PC, but they come from the world of kids interactive games, so doing things like the Magic School Bus and everything like that. So what we did was spent a lot of time with them, actually helping them turn it into a video game rather than kind of an interactive experience, because I think their early demos were beautiful looking, and you were kind of going, oh, and you can cast spells and this, that, and the other. It's like, yeah, but where's the game? Where's the adventure? Yeah. And then their Game Boy Advance one, we actually brought some of their team over, and part of our team worked in with their team to create a kind of top-down adventure that was kind of a simplified sort of version of what we were ultimately aiming for on the next gen games. So that was kind of our involvement with that. So Hagford meme, I can say is kind of down to Argonaut. I do have a wonderful little story though about Argonaut, Low Poly Faces, and Harry Potter. Apparently, Alan Rickman was very protective of his likeness in the game, and so they guys had obviously gone round and round, because one of the things was, well, EA had the rights to Harry Potter, the property and the books, but they didn't have the rights to the movie likenesses because that was being handled by Warner Brothers. So actually, when we started off, it was this kind of like, we're doing Harry Potter, we'll look at what the movies are doing and try and kind of reflect, but we didn't have kind of the movie people were going, we have the movies, we don't want to be bothered with kind of like, you're doing a game, that's nice. We're too busy making our movies to try and kind of like even bother about you, because this
to
is
integrate or anything, yeah.
And stuff. So it wasn't until as the games went along, you could see this more of an integration. We were, I think, on potentially Goblet of Fire, I think was where it started to change over. But there were certain instances where we hadn't got the likenesses to the actors officially. So it was like, make it 10% more Daniel, then back it off, kind of thing, was some of the discussions that we were having actually on the kind of the later games, where it was kind of like, because it was that sort of thing from the point of view of making the games, you're kind of going, but I'm coming out from the movie and I've just seen Daniel and Emily Watson and
Emma Watson.
Rupert. Emma
yeah.
Watson, yeah. And Rupert Grint on screen. I'm expecting to see them or something that resembles them in the game. Why aren't they in the game, kind of thing? And so it was kind of an evolving thing. So if you actually look at the likenesses as they go along, I think it was Order of the Phoenix where we had absolute, no, you can use those guys in the game, kind of proper contractually and all that kind of stuff. So it was this kind of like, and building up the trust between Warner Brothers and Electronic Arts. So we went sharing assets, and I'm so fortunate to, I think it was Goblet of Fire, actually got the opportunity to visit the set, and then later on Order of the Phoenix, which was an amazing thing.
Wow, that's amazing, yeah.
I'm so happy to see that, Warner then took on all of the sets and everything and created that amazing tour that they've done, because
many times been to that, it's incredible.
Yeah, well, say when I was working on the games, you walk in and you go, I'm literally in the Great Hall at Hogwarts. Yeah. If I don't look up, I'm there. The Defense Against Dark Arts classroom was such a complete set, with apart from a few of the light stands, you're just like, I might as well literally be in a castle of Scotland. It's so well done, and the level of detail and artistry. So the fact that they've preserved those things and turned them into an exhibit, and other people can have the experience that I have, fantastic. Although being at the canteen, sitting down, eating some really nice food, because they do really nice food on film sets, and literally you have the entire cast, all of the kids from Hogwarts, all in the rows, just sat at the next tables, and you're going, this is kind of wild. So I will never forget that.
Where's my robe? I want to fit in. Come on, guys!
Yeah,
Give me a hat or something.
And stuff. And then kind of like being able to step in the room of requirements whilst on set before anybody's seen it. We had to put little tiny boots on because it's all reflective floors, so it was like kind of little paper covers onto a shoe so that you didn't mess up any of the mirrors or anything like that. Don't touch anything, don't take any photographs, but this is what it is, which was amazing.
That's wild.
So that kind of came along. But in terms of the going back to the Hagrid blood-faced meme kind of thing, that was something that I was unaware of, and it was only in recent years somebody went, "What about that?" I was like, "It's a thing, is it?" "Oh yeah." Like, wow. But yes, my story about Alan Rickman, he was very protective of his likeness, so wanted approval. And according to what I heard, was Argonaut were kind of tearing their hair out, trying to get his likeness on basically 4 planes of a face on the PlayStation 1.
Mm-hmm.
So much so that they went, "Well, tell you what, we'll send you 12 different versions and you pick the one you like." So they took the PlayStation model and rotated it, took 12 screenshots from different angles, and he went, "Number 7. And I went, "Funnily enough, that's the one that's in the game." Because, of course, at the end of the day, you've got this distorted box. You're throwing textures on that are slightly distorted.
Yeah.
It looks different, and in the case of Hagrid, a bit weird from most angles. So there they go, and they got the approval of the amazing, talented Mr. Rickman. So that's the story I've got from there.
That's wild. You just don't think of these things happen. Getting to talk to you about these things. We play the finished article. We play the finished products. We go through it. It's really nice to know that there's somebody out there that's fighting the corner of the people who love the original material. Would have loved to have got you in things like the Rings of Power and things like that for start. But that's a conversation.
I have raged many times over a lot of what's happened over the past few years, where you just make the thing, leave your politics, your message outside the door. Do that either subtly, so people go, "You know what, that's an allegory for so and so," or whatever. But to beat people over the head and go, "You don't like," it's like, no, this thing is bigger than you.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be messing with it, sort of thing. Do your own thing. Tell somebody else. Tell your own story. Well, no, but that's hard. Yeah, exactly. And making Star Wars was hard for George Lucas, and and retaining the integrity of Harry Potter for Joe Rowling was incredibly difficult to say. She had approval all the way through. So one of the things that I actually didn't have the fortune to meet her, Guy did all of the work with her.
Mm-hmm.
But when we were building this whole thing, she was really interested in it, sent us like 100 pages of notes on what would be interesting that she thought would be good for the game. So we had like listings of what things you could buy in Diagon Alley, what they would cost, and all sorts of stuff, and notes about, the secret passages and everything like that sort of thing. So when we were building the games, and especially those, all the way through, but even on the first 2, it was like, let's try and make Hogwarts as reflective of what's in the book. We get the secret passages in there and have all of that exploration. So, you get to go and experience the world through Harry's eyes at Hogwarts, a day-to-night cycle and all this kind of stuff. Everything we did was like, had to approve, can we have these spells, these are the effects, here's the voice script and everything like that kind of thing. And it was great because you knew that what you were doing was reflecting her voice. Over the course of things, we invented new creatures and characters because I think on Goblet of Fire, it's like we need some creatures that can fly around and be a target. Here's some drawings, we think we'd call them this. And it was like, yes, okay. So there were certain things that arose in the games that did go into canon effectively because we had to get approval for them. Here's a game mechanic that's, I forget because it's a very long while now. It's like trying to remember my A-level chemistry. There's a certain point you know everything, and then you step away from it and your brain goes, "Oh, we're never doing this ever again. Nope, right, I shall shelve it and we'll do it."
Well, you have to start learning about like how to work an air fryer or how to,
absolutely
access Alexa settings, and then the things that are important that you did back then have just disappeared completely, don't they?
So but and it was one of those kind of ones of certainly on those first. Because one of the things was, talking about the history of it, we were working on the Philosopher's Stone game over the 2-year period, and of course there was a certain point it was like, hang on a minute, Philosopher's Stone the movies come out, and then we'll be releasing Philosopher's Stone on the PlayStation 2 at the time of Chamber of Secrets. What's going on there? It was like, we agree. So what we had to do was rework the story so that then Chamber of Secrets, the next gen PlayStation 2 GameCube game, came in day and date with the second movie. It wasn't too much of a thing, but we actually had got the plot and everything worked out for Philosopher's Stone, and then kind of like, right, it needs this, it needs the Chamber of Secrets for one, and doing all that kind of stuff. And then I think it was Warthog a little while later picked up and did the Philosopher's Stone game out of house. But yeah, certainly for those first two games, one of the things myself and Andy Carriage, who's my co-designer on it, really wanted to do was to make Hogwarts explorable and have that idea of the re-entrant grand staircase and everything like that. So we kind of just by brute force scripted as much as possible of like NPCs and things like that kind of thing, because it was that sort of thing of the sexy stuff is what goes on in the levels and the action, so it was always played down, but we're like, if it doesn't have this, it's not going to Hogwarts with Harry, it's just a series of levels. And then when it came to Goblet of Fire, we had an engine change to Renderware, which was kind of like Criterion, had just been bought by EA, and it was evident that we couldn't do with Renderware the kind of scripting and kind of re-entrant gameplay that we'd done on the first two. Plus also the kind of word had come back was they wanted to do a multiplayer on screen round the TV, dad and kids playing together kind of experience. And it's like, oh, hang on a minute, this is going to be a real struggle if we've got a super explorable Hogwarts and dad wants to go that way and Ron and Hermione want to go that way. It's going to be a nightmare. So we shifted over to the Goblet of Fire style, level by level, where you're working together. And it was kind of quite gratifying to me personally when we came back to Order of the Phoenix. It was like, the feedback we've had was, that was okay, but we'd really like an explorable Hogwarts. I was like, yes. So kind of for the final part of Order of the Phoenix, we'd had access to all of the sort of like concept plans for Hogwarts, because the giant model that they have in the movie changes and adapts from movie to accommodate various different sort of elements. So, you know, the hippogriff paddock gets added for Prisoner of Azkaban. There's an extra tower here and all that kind of stuff. So myself and the art director, Kelvin, got together, took everything we knew about Hogwarts, entire connectivity and structure from the first, I think probably about 6 books had come out by then, and then all of the movie locations from like Oxford and all those screenshots, and the various different special effects models, and came up with a version of Hogwarts which resolved all of those things. As I'd left, it was like as close as we could make to be movie accurate, but also fictionally accurate and explorable. And so halfway through Order of the Phoenix, I got a call from my mate Alex Ward, who was at Criterion, going, "You've been working on wands, and you know we're playing around with wands for like 6-7 years. Do you want to play with like guns and cars and explosions?" I was like, "Alex, I'm in." So that then jetted me off out of Potter's world, having had a wonderful time. And then actually, the great thing about that was it meant that I could return to the Potter series as a fan. So as the games were going, as the books were dropping, it was kind of like midnight at Asda on a Friday night, come straight home, straight over, get the midnight opening book, and then spend the entire weekend just mainlining the whole book, making notes, because of course, this has just been released, but the thing that we're working on, there might be something else. And there were a couple of instances where Joe Rowling actually went, "You might not want to do that in the game here, because I might have something planned, or stay clear of this floor," and things like that.
Yeah,
like,
because something's coming.
Cool.
Yeah, that is really cool.
But yeah, so I think it was maybe the last two books I got to read as a fan and round out the story, which is kind of a thing, because actually one of the things I will say about licensed product, if you do it properly, you're throwing yourself into it and immersing it and working out, deconstructing and working out it works. And it's kind of like eating all of the ice cream at the factory. And then when you think you're done, they open a door up and there's like a barrow full of chunky monkey coming in. You can't go, "Oh, I don't know." No, keep eating. So when you finally get out, you're like, "That was nice. I never want to touch Raspberry Ripple again. I'm done. And so weirdly, this is one of the reasons why I never wanted to work on a Batman or a Star Wars game, because I thought it's going to ruin it for me.
Yeah. Sometimes you can get too much of a good thing, can't you? And then it's nice that you could. It's nice that you could then go from Magic to working on, being most wanted in the Need for Speed world, and making insane. The amount of times that I would go to my GameCube and I'd be like, why is Need for Speed in here again? And my dad had spent all night playing Need for Speed Most Wanted, or he'd be playing Burnout continuously. I'd be like, I'm come home from school, I'm going to play on, it's Monday, it's Dad's day off, I might, I'm sure he'll be out doing something. I'll play some Wind Waker or something, and then he'd have a racing game on, and, when Most Wanted came out, we would sit together and we would just spend hours and hours and hours getting like the decals on the cars right and stuff, and then you playing Burnout and the explosions. It was like nothing that I'd seen before, and it was for me those two games have got some great core memories, and it must have been fun working on them, and it kind of, again, you come a long way from working on the BBC Micro, you come a long way from working on Monty Python, you go through Harry Potter, you then end up here. It's not like you've just stayed in one specific genre, you've kind of just gone, I've done that, I'll have a go at massive explosions now.
Yeah. And say that one of the things was to say I'd known Alex Ward, who head of Criterion, from our days back in Acclaim, because he used to work in A&R at Acclaim, hiring, bringing on board various different teams and games to Acclaim for them to publish.
Sure, yeah.
And so he'd become like creative director at Criterion and had originated Burnout. So when I came on board, it was actually to start on Black 2, the sequel to their PlayStation shooter Black. Which was this incredible sort of like everything's destructible gun game.
And bullet hell completely,
exactly.
Yeah.
So I came in on that, and at that point the Burnout 5 team was like going on building the Burnout Paradise that it became. And we had this sort of small team. We were kind of like looking at what would be Black 2 for, I guess, would be next generation of PlayStation 3. And we started building up kind of like how we'd approach it. I think there was kind of like an idea of multiple routes, much better AI, those kind of things. And we're sort of brainstorming with lots and lots of post-it notes and things. I had the fortune to work alongside a guy called Nilo Rodis-Jamero. He only designed most of Buzz Lightyear and most of Return of the Jedi and a lot of Empire Strikes Back.
Only, just...
I was just like spent about 6 months in the company of this wonderful man, just trying not to fanboy. Just going, so well, George came to me and went, I need another type of trooper, but it takes too long for the stormtroopers to get ready, so we need some kind of costume that's easy. All right, in that case, I'll put the flip down lids on the scout troopers. How's about that? Yeah, okay. And it was like, generous, lovely chap. It was at the time when EA were bringing in some Hollywood talent, and I've worked alongside some incredible guys from Hollywood who came over at that period. Another guy called Alex Laurent, who was the visual effects director for The Mummy and stuff like that. Of thing. They're kind of bringing all of their stuff. So I was working alongside Neil on this particular one, and we were kind of discussing what we'd do. And then gradually, over the weeks, one programmer or a designer or an artist would slowly disappear from the Black 2 team, because the behemoth that was Burnout 5, Burnout Paradise, was just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then there was kind of like a moment where I think it was myself and about 2 other guys sat in a room with a load of post-its going, we're never going to get those people back, are we? So I had the fortune of then joining the Burnout Paradise team, but kind of like when the game was in full flight, they knew what they were doing, they were just making it. And so what I ended up doing was acting in a support role, helping out with all manner of bits and pieces. So like the website, we then put together a video podcast and everything. And for like kind of like the year of DLC, my buddy Jess Chubb and myself put together what's called Crash TV, which was kind of like a every couple of weeks a YouTube show showcasing what was in the game, what the team were working on, talking to fans and promoting, because we actually had a whole year of free DLC, because it was like use the existing game as a platform for experimentation and learning and trying stuff out, sort of thing. So I had an absolute thrill, but it all came from, I think it was Alex going, you know how to make a podcast? I was like, no, but I'll try it. Do you know how to make a website? Don't know, but I'll try it. I've got an idea for a DS game. Do you want to have a go with that? Yeah, okay, then we'll come up with some ideas. It's really hard getting original product pitched at a big company like EA. If they get behind something, they're committing with bajillions of dollars, but the kind of like but to get hold of those bajillion dollars, you've really got to convince and stuff. And so I have worked on a number of pitches which could have worked but didn't land, but had a whole lot of experience, and so doing all sorts of things that were around the periphery of kind of the Burnout team, and just watching them put this wonder together. So it was like a really cool aspect, although I was never working directly on the game except for when we started doing like the live front end and stuff. The majority of the stuff was kind of supporting those guys who had this killer game, and kind of like, how do you showcase it, how do you tell everybody about it, and also reflect all the fun that was having. Because one of the great things about Burnout Paradise was it was go online, tool around in the car with your mates. And it was kind of trying to capture that spirit and kind of go, yeah, we're aware of it. We had some fans come down to the studio and hosting those guys and everything. So that was kind of a completely different thing from designing and coding and stuff like that. And I had so much fun with that.
Awesome. So is it a similar story with Need for Speed as well, or?
Well, I say Need for Speed. So what happened with Need for Speed was, I came around about 2009. I'd been working for Criterion for about 3 or 4 years. I'd been away from home for like 13 years by this point. And I was kind of like, I'm going to make 2009 my year to come back home. So I thought I'll just put the feelers out, see if I can get a job closer to home. And I actually contacted Hugh Binns at Eurocom. Now, Eurocom had sort of developed in parallel with the Derby software scene that I grew up with. So there's a lot of connectivity there. And then when we were working on Harry Potter and Chamber of Secrets, Eurocom actually did the GameCube version of our game that we were doing on PlayStation 2. So I actually spent some time with those guys and got to know them and worked very closely alongside them as they were developing the GameCube adaptation of what we were making. And so I got in touch with you and I went, oh, I'm thinking of coming home or whatever, like that kind of thing. So he said, we'll do something. So I got offered a job. So I was in this kind of situation. Spoke to Alex and Fiona, who ran Criterion, and said, look, I've been away for all this time. I'm going to go home and sleep on my own bed. We'll do this. And like, oh no, we totally understand. They sent me I had a wonderful farewell from everybody, which kind of a little bit teary.
Yeah.
And kind of said, right, okay, so I'm heading home. So I headed home 2009, and basically, early January, I was to start at Eurocom. Didn't know what I was working on. And he was like, oh, so excited to this, that, and the other. And I'm thinking, well, Eurocom have done kind of a load of kids' Disney sort of stuff. I'll be content to do this because I've worked on all of this mental stuff, over the year. Couldn't wish for it more. I'm just happy to have a job in the industry, working on interesting projects and things like that. And, we've got something for you. It's with Activision. I was like, okay. It's on the Wii. I was like, that's interesting. Yeah. We want a kind of a modern update of GoldenEye. It was like, okay, so you want me to remake Citizen Kane, Star Wars, and The Godfather and not mess it up? I thought I was going to have a quiet life. So that was kind of my way into Bond, but it was literally because of the fact they had to be super secret about what they were working on. In fact, even in the building, they had different projects and the teams were isolated because you couldn't, you could be working for Activision on one side of a door and Sega or Namco on the other side of a door, and so you didn't know. So the idea of even knowing what you did before you started the job was like, okay. So I had 18 months on GoldenEye, which is one story, and then partway through kind of like April of 2010, Alex got in touch and went, when are you coming back? I was like, well, if you can move the office further north, I can probably meet you halfway. He was like, I'm sure you can do something or other. You could work from home, couldn't you? I was like, if you can work out something.
Yeah.
So so I had like the easiest phone call interview of like, when do you want to start? I was like, okay. So actually worked out with the guys at Criterion that I was going to work from home most of the week and then go down, stay in a hotel overnight, so I could spend 2 days in the office, 3 days at home.
Yeah.
So the end of GoldenEye was in the September of 2010. I kind of finished, and then the following day came back and went, sorry, I'm going, and started back with Criterion in kind of like November 2010, because in the meantime those guys had worked on they'd been given Need for Speed, and they'd worked on Hot Pursuit, the 2010 version, and so I timed it so that then they were finishing, so it didn't make any sense of me starting until they finished. So I joined them for the Most Wanted, the 2012 Most Wanted game, because there was that sort of thing of that sort of weird recycling of titles, where it's like, well, we could put out a Need for Speed whatever, but can you do one called Hot Pursuit? Can you do one that's called Most Wanted? So yeah, I started on there, and then what I was the lead designer on the multiplayer portion of Need for Speed, working with a lot of the guys that had worked on Burnout. And so it was kind of like, how do you give you again this, you have an open world, you go online, you tool around with your mates, what are the things that you can do to battle and race and have fun and do stunts and everything like that kind of thing.
You touched on it. The last game I want to talk about, it's a big one. Getting the call to remake GoldenEye, to make a new. I mean, that's got to be one of the most exciting but scariest things of all time.
It was terrifying.
GoldenEye being, I mean, I'm looking at my copy up here. One of the best N64 games, one of the best and most pivotal shooter games of my generation.
Yeah. It was the first thing where you
classic.
went, oh, you can actually do a shooter on a console.
Yeah.
Until that point, PCs had done it. It said you can do it, and then I think kind of, for me personally, it wasn't really until maybe the second or third Call of Duty where you go, oh, we've now got proper shooters that you don't need a mouse and keyboard for on a PlayStation. But yeah. And also the other one as well that always struck me with the original GoldenEye was the level of immersion. Just the simple, I'm bringing up my watch as the interface screen.
It was so good. It was incredible. You know, the faces, you see James Bond's face, and I was thinking, this cannot get any better than this. And I look back now and I'm like, it definitely could. But back in the time, that was James Bond. We were watching, you know, you were playing that, you were diving off that, you know, the dam facility. You were going through the sniper rifles. It was unreal. And then to take that and then be told, you're remaking this, you're putting Daniel Craig in there instead of Pierce Brosnan. Yeah. I mean, I would be absolutely bricking it at that point.
Absolutely. Wait, so myself and Mike Robinson were like, we had a phrase that was like, if we don't put this X in, there will be burning crosses on the lawn, you know, sort of thing. So we kind of went in, and it was this kind of weird situation where it was like, oh, we want to remake GoldenEye. Okay, that's a big enough thing. But we want it with Daniel Craig instead of Pierce Brosnan. Okay, cool. Well, what we can do is we can really play up the physical kind of stuff, because Craig's Bond, really, really physical. There's that whole sort of, say, the immersion of being first person. So we really play into that. So when he's grappling with guys, you're seeing it from his point of view. He takes the guys down. It's really brutal. Make the movement through the world very agile because of all the kind of like parkour stuff that was in the first one. And Casino Royale and everything like that. Brilliant. Oh, by the way, we don't really want any of the locations that are in the new game to be the same as the ones in the original. Okay, yeah, because we don't want Daniel standing in the place where Pierce is. It needs to be different. Ideally, the characters and the storyline will be different, because we don't want to retread that thing. So it's like, okay, so we're taking something beloved, we're being advised to rip all of this stuff out, and then still go, GoldenEye. So we had a team on the multiplayer who were just sort of like, we're just going to go straight in and we're going to concentrate on multiplayer. We know we've got to have Odd Job in there with the slightly too small in the hat and things like that kind of thing, or whatever. The single player game, like, how do we do it? And I had some meetings with Eon Productions. There was a point where I was kind of like in terms of breaking down the storyline, there was a sort of a situation of, oh, instead of it being the Russians, could it be some other organization? And I remember having a meeting down at Young Productions where I'd literally broken down all the story points in their story and the mechanics of how the story worked, and said, look, it has to be a major superpower. If it's not Russia, it needs to be North Korea, China, something like that kind of thing, because they need to have access to nuclear weapons for this to happen, for that to happen, all that. Like, if you don't have
Somebody
this,
got string going everywhere,
yeah,
like
exactly,
this, yeah.
this sort of thing. So there was a whole lot of that, and we kind of worked with them. They sent us a great production designer from the movie studio who actually worked with other artists to come up with a new look that kind of still reflected it. So looking at a big piece of brutalist architecture and everything. So it had the flavour of Bond, and that we had kind of like new takes on existing locations. And then in certain places where you go, okay, then it does not, this scene doesn't necessarily have to take place in exactly the same one from the movie. What is it now? So I think it was like this is going back a bit kind of thing. Again, knew it like the back of my hand. Now, brain has sort of written it off, but sort of like the Arms fair where they showed the helicopter at the first time. It's like our substitute was slightly different. The characters in it were slightly different. They brought a screenwriter in, costume designer as well for the movies to actually design these characters. So there are character differences as well all the way through, and that was adapted. From the gameplay point of view, the thing that sort of like I kind of pitched when we very started was looking at the original GoldenEye, was that whole aspect of stealth, because of course you could go through and you could literally take everybody out. And it was like, well, actually, Daniel Craig's Bond is super smart, really efficient, very physical. So if you're not taking them down with a thing, we do the takedowns with with all the body and kind of leap over and take this guy out and stuff like that. Make those really, really cool. But kind of like with an accent on stealth and cunning, so it could break out into a firefight if necessary. We also got hold of Daniel Craig's stunt double, and actually a local guy, Damien, who was he did all of the opening of Hellboy 2, the Prince, who does all that kind of parkour stuff. Yeah. We got those two in motion capture suits in the facility and had them do all the takedowns. And there's kind of two things. I remember texting my wife and going, I'm not appropriate for this. My day at work is not appropriate. I've got two muscular men grappling with one another in Lycra suits here. I'm appreciating it from a technical point of view, but not as much as you and your mate Julie would.
And her and Julie were on the first bus down there by this point.
Yeah, exactly. But the incredible thing was, these guys never met. But within minutes, we were like, well, we need you to take him down from over a balcony with an AK-47, this, that, and the other. And how swiftly they just knew or communicated with each other how to operate. And they were doing stuff which just looked painful and lethal. And if you tried to attempt it, you'd end up in the hospital or worse yourself. Was remarkable. So we had that kind of opportunity to work with those guys. And so we started building the game up over the first year. And then there's a little game called Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 came out, which
that little chestnut.
And just went, oh, you think you're making a first-person game that's a bit stealthy and this, that, and the other. This is how to make it really cinematic and action-packed. And so almost overnight, the demands on the game, from rather than being this kind of like stealthy kind of assassin sort of thing, was like, how can we pack as much spectacle in as possible? And so kind of like the demands on that, which means going through every level, inch by inch, going, where can we pack in an extra bit of spectacle moment? Where can we bring in another exploding helicopter or whatever? And it was like, this is huge. So ended up with a kind of fleet of designers and producers all working on various different levels, critiquing them, adding more, whilst the story was being adapted by Hollywood in a slightly different way. So kind of coming into 2010, it was basically, you think you're sleeping in your own bed at night. No,
you're not.
Going to be 7 days a week all the way through September, which it was, kind of thing. So weirdly, the idea of coming home for 2009, actually being with my wife and kids in my own bed, it was like, it was kind of up in the morning, straight back to work, and then coming back kind of frazzled and going. And then say one of my big things on the back end of GoldenEye was there's the tank sequence is a huge kind of sequence in the thing, and we're in that point where it's like, we don't think we've got it in the budget to do it. It was like, well, hang on a minute, I'm sure. So it was like, give me a programmer, give me a world artist, and I'll see if I can do it. So I basically rolled up my sleeves and got in there, built the 3D design mesh for the level, and had a world artist working with me to then translate that into visuals. I had a coder. We developed up all the tank, and then basically riding on the back of the explosions and crazy that was going on the first person game, landed this kind of like level, because it was like, it's got to have that sequence where the whole game goes, right, here's another control method, there's this really cool action sequence, and then you come back in kind of thing. So I spent a lot of time blowing up buildings and throwing helicopters at tanks towards the end of that one.
So how did you feel? I mean, talking about we've touched on you being like the fiction police for Harry Potter, and then going and making sure that the elements of Monty Python were in the game. How did you feel sort of being told that this is GoldenEye, but you've got to make it not GoldenEye?
Yeah, well,
was that a moral dilemma for you?
Like, it was this sort of situation that kind of like, and say that was one of the ones that did become a thing when, so I can definitely remember in those kind of early months going down to Eon and going, you're asking me to do this. Do you know how your story works? And it was both me and Mike going, look, if these things, because he was aware of how beloved this game was. It was like, this isn't any James Bond game.
This is the James Bond
game. So we've got to, through what we put in this game, have as much stuff. Otherwise, there will be burning crosses on the lawn. So it was a real kind of, reeling the Hollywood types particularly in from, I know best, it's what I can put some character development in. No, this bit works. That's got to be in there. You've got to have Seven Eye, you've got to have the tank, you've got to end here, kind of thing, or whatever. Sean Bean must die. It's those kind of things.
Sean Bean must die is the thing that everything Sean Bean's in, that's the factor.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. So it was that kind of like leaning on everything and going through analytically and explaining why these things had to be in there. And so it was kind of a bit of this kind of experience for me, because you're just kind of going, you're trying to stay true to it and hold on to it and say there is that sort of thing of, it's not just a beloved property that you're adapting from a movie into a game, but it's a beloved game.
Yeah.
That's also based on a movie that a lot of people have got a really fond memories of, and we are making it all modern and changing everything up. And it's like, how do you kind of get all that lot in? So yeah, it was quite challenging. And then so Modern Warfare 2 hit, which was like, helicopters? How many did you want to explode today? There was actually a bit of a joke. I don't remember the 50 Cent game on the 360, but every boss was an attack helicopter gunship, and me and Mike were like, yep, we've sure got more helicopters than Fiddy. So we just kept putting these things in and in and in, sort of thing or whatever. Because it's like, how do you get a cool explosion? Helicopter flies to the building, explodes? Yes, go on then, let's have another one. So there was a sort of an aspect, certainly on that tank game at the end of it, where it was like, how much more spectacle can I get in? Short of pulling in a planet and watching an exploding sun, it's kind of crazy.
I quite like the idea of you going and getting all the Monty Pythons, all the Harry Potter books, and then I'm just going to go buy a load of helicopters and just try and see how they all explode on a weekend, and then I can physically get that right.
Yeah. So yeah, it was a wild experience kind of thing. I'm pleased to have had the experience, but yeah, it was one of those kind of like, you are going in on about January the 2nd of 2009, like, so it's going to be like a Lilo and Stitch 2 puzzle game and this, that, and the other. No.
No, the most sort of fragile thing we could ever get you to do, that you're in charge of designing this and making this, so go for it. Nice one, mate.
Yeah. Okay. So then it was.
So what's we'll start to round things off there, I think, because this has been an incredible episode. What's next for you? What's happening in the future? Obviously, you're still cracking on with the art. I've seen on your website you've got some commission pieces, things you've been doing.
Yeah.
You're still very much involved with art. So what's kind of next on your agenda?
Yeah. So what happened? Just to speed run the back end of the career. After working on for Need for Speed, I was still at Electronic Arts Criterion. After a few years, Alex and Fiona, who ran the studio, they left to set up their own company, and around about that time, it was like, okay, let's go. I was like, again, once the founders of a company kind of go, it starts to change. And I was like, well, I've been spending a load of time away, so I moved home, retrained myself because I'd been doing just design work. So I was like, I want to learn how to 3D to build stuff in 3D. I want to go back to learning how to code again. So I fired up Unity and started just writing my own stuff and everything like that. And about sort of 6-8 months later, got in touch with Alex and Fiona and joined them at Three Fields Entertainment. And so kind of the last 10 years of my life was working from home with a small team of seven of us, all friends, working on cool stuff. We did things based on the Unreal Engine. The idea was to make a series of games quickly on a small budget and to put out as many as possible and kind of build on our knowledge. So worked on Dangerous Golf, which is a physics golf game where you can set fire to the ball, create the ultimate trick shot. Some VR title called Lethal VR, which was real good fun to play around with VR. The 2 Danger Zone games, which are about throwing cars into a crash junction, causing a load of spectacle. Dangerous Driving, which then leaned into the kind of track takedown kind of stuff.
For which Simon spent a whole weekend practicing dangerous driving around Derby, probably, I imagine. That's a joke for him. Before anybody rings him up and tries to bust him for this, that is not true.
So I drive electric and I drive very, very carefully. And then sort of like for the past, it'd be about 5.5 years, working on what is Recreation, which will be coming out on the current consoles and PC towards the summer from THQ and Three Fields. And basically, I was in a situation where my wife Jane had retired. My finance guy was going, dude, you can retire. I was like, really? So kind of like working on what was going to be the sequel to Dangerous Driving 2 that became Recreation. I was like, one more year. And then kind of at the end of 2023, we were like, okay, this is going to keep going. The game is going to take maybe a year, 18 months, 2 years. We're not too sure. We certainly were thinking it was at least another year. It's like we've gone one more year many times. So I kind of like said to the guys, look, I'm going to have to retire. There are so many other things that I want to do and everything. So actually, I've had the privilege of, for the past sort of like nearly 18 months now, working part-time with those guys. So I've actually been doing a few hours here and there, helping with the game. Since then, my son, who is a really accomplished coder, has joined the team. So
nice.
There was a moment until he moved out of the house a few months ago, times where we would, whilst I was wrapping up on full-time work, and then kind of like a more recent sort of situations where we would have lunch and we'd be sitting there just talking shop. Now, the point is he is incredibly technical, so I'm literally hanging on with my fingertips to everything he's talking about. So I deprecated the class and then did a packet, this, that, and the other. I'm like, I made a thing with a ramp on it, and it goes in the game and the car goes up in the air. But had an absolute blast, and it's been joy to be able to work on this game. It's a absolutely gigantic open world that you can play single player, multiplayer with your friends. The big thing that kind of in this is the idea that you can customize and create as much as possibly can. So the kind of spirit of, we have defined a series of races and events and things like that. You can go in and make them better, because we know that players, once they get hold of the tools, they can make things a million times better than they have. They've got the time and they can build on what's there. So released the to kind of like one of the announcements videos a couple of years ago. There's a whole kind of like system that I've built, which is all sort of to do with building additional tracks that will go up in the sky with loops and coaster curves, and you can build all these insane tracks.
Easy stuff then.
But the thing is that unlike something like, say, Trackmania, where you go, I'm going to design something offline and then I'm going to bring it online, and then me and my mates can do it. The system that we've got working in Recreation is the fact that you go online with your mates and you can build it together. We actually, for many years now, I had a situation where, a couple of us are building a track, a load of us are racing around. We're deleting pieces, changing pieces under, or throwing bricks at the people that are driving around the track and stuff. So it's this whole kind of customizable, kind of like joyous sort of world. It's a big kind of thing for a very, very small team. So that's kind of been on the way. So I've kind of been doing that on and off, little hours here and there over the past kind of 15, 18 months of retirement. And then basically, say beginning of last year was like, okay, if opportunities present themselves, say yes. One of the things a hobby that I discovered when I turned 50, so that's 2016, was getting into costuming and cosplay. So I make full-scale replica Star Wars droids and costumes, and Jane and I are like involved with the costuming club. So we will go to various different events, conventions, and children's hospitals, and raise money for children's charity.
Amazing
charity. We've got a little group called the EMG, the East Midlands Garrison. And throughout the year, mostly the summer, we will go and attend everything from village fetes to hospitals to hotels to various different places where the convention will kind of hire us to be there and act as, photo ops for the guests and stuff like that kind of thing, in costumes that we've made that are screen accurate, more screen accurate than you would get in the movies, and share that experience. But they take the money that they would give us and they give it to the charity. So we're volunteering our time and the charity's getting the sort of stuff. So I've got friends who dress as Wookiees. Say I've got a Stormtrooper, a Jedi. My next one is I'm building Boba Fett from Return of the Jedi.
Oh, nice.
Kind of built a full-size R2-D2 that kind of greets me when I walk into the room. It's got motion section. I wanted to learn electronics, so I thought I'll build a droid. So I'm kind of a droid.
I'll just do one of the most complicated things known to man and just build an R2D2.
Yeah. So yeah, it's been that kind of thing. I'm occasionally doing sort of commissions for retro gaming kind of companies where they'll bring kind of create new games for current hardware in the old style, or original games for existing hardware that's been out for years and is being lovingly done, and also taking up the opportunity to go to some expos. Had a wonderful experience late summer last year. I was invited to a town called Spoleto in Italy, never been to Italy, and met a huge bunch of Amiga fans, which was absolutely emotional and amazing. That was kind of like one of the ones that was like, wow, this is, ended up telling my story at the Knott's Video Games Expo, because for years I'd not really wanted to do any of that sort of stuff. I'd answered a few questions online, done a few podcasts, and they asked me to appear in person. I was like, well, you're local, you're lovely, I'll go and I'll do a little talk about, how I got here. And
sure thing.
They really enjoyed it. And so I've been sort of doing a few little bits and pieces like this. But say I got approached, would you like to come over to Italy to speak to us there? So this wonderful sort of afternoon in Spoleto in September, it's actually outside in this lovely little area where we've got the stuff. And one of the things that kind of like really hit home, and this was something that I hadn't realised and never known until that moment, was, for me, it was, I get paid to do something really, really cool. It's paying for the mortgage. I better not mess it up. I'd love to keep on going. And I put my game out, and the expectation always for me was, you make the game, it goes out, it probably, if you're lucky, pops into the charts. Nobody really will play it after the lifetime of the machine. People are less likely to even remember it. And certainly it will die with the machine. At least like with pop songs, they are kind of like being remastered. There are new bits and pieces. But video games, because they belong to a particular piece of hardware, once that hardware goes off the shelves or whatever, and you're 3 PlayStations deep into a new hardware cycle, nobody's going to ever remember it. And the thing was, going to Spoleto was like all these guys with their Amigas and everything like that kind of thing.
How wrong you were, eh? Yeah.
Yeah, and coming to me with boxes of shrink-wrapped games that I'd worked on, more than I've got in my loft, That's the only other place where I've seen them, because occasionally you would get a copy. It's like, oh, cool, that goes in the loft. And asking me to sign them, and then starting to share their stories. And one of the things, and it was really profound, I was in tears by the end of the night, it was really through me, was the realization that one of the things, whilst I was stressing about doing these things and getting paid to do something really cool, was all of us back then, and even continuing now, you're actually putting happiness and joy out in the world. You're creating memories for, for kids who, one guy, he'd lost his brother, and the way he got back in touch with his brother, and this choked me up when I heard about this, was he got the Amiga out and started playing it, and that brought back all the memories and it was like, holy wow. And you're kind of putting this out, and you're entertaining, you're probably smashing the TV screen of the people that you don't know, who can't get through Brick Dangerous, and they put the Competition Pro through the screen. But you're kind of putting this lot out in the world, and that's what you kind of like, you're unaware of. And then decades later, to have all of this joy and appreciation and love come back to you with people who've gone, this for me is a beloved memory. It was absolutely overwhelming. And it was something that I hadn't expected. You're just putting it out into the universe, and somehow or other, this all kind of came back, and it was really meaningful, and kind of, you're enjoying the ride that you're on. It's a roller coaster, and I had some very low lows at certain points on this ride, where the pressure and the stress and everything like piles up. But yeah, it's kind of like that kind of afternoon in Spoleto, when all of a sudden it just came all boom, like this kind of thing. It was remarkable.
Full circle,
and
yeah.
it's one of those kind of things that, I hope other folks that have had the privilege of doing what I'm doing experience that kind of thing, and sort of to now be talking to game makers now who are stressing over how many levels they've got to do, or what they all that kind of stuff, is you're actually creating these kind of memories. And these games also, although right now all you're concerned with is getting them out the door, is that somebody will remember them. There will be the favourite game that someone remembers somewhere. And those games, thanks to all of the fans out there, the folks that have got together, and they have kept the memories of these things alive. It's wonderful and remarkable. I'm really grateful for it, because I didn't expect that was the case. So yeah, that's kind of what I've been leaning into. So I'm doing like, I've got much more time to do fitness, because I'm mad about kind of keeping fit and eating properly and stuff. So the costuming, the prop making, I've got a YouTube channel where I've started sharing my prop builds, because I used to document them and take photos. And like, actually, I'm going to share them as video, because it takes no more time to film little bits and pieces. That's kind of interesting. Yeah, and then various different art projects of different kinds of subject matter, because I have this kind of, my wife and I always talk about, it's a blessing and a curse. My brain does not switch off, and I love making things, and I love making many different things. And
I know that feeling.
Yeah, and it's like, I am so gifted with this capacity to want to keep making things, and cartooning 1 minute, digital painting another, sculpting another, and all this kind of stuff. But also, it won't switch off. So once you're on that roller coaster, that's why there are droid parts in our kitchen. There's a stack of note cards that I take with me. So rather than fiddling around with a phone, I'm drawing little graffiti sketches and photographing and sticking those up online and things like that kind of thing. But it's brilliant to be able to have the time to do it, and actually now being able to get out in the world, spend time with your good self and other such enthusiasts who are going, hey, this thing, it's really cool. We like it. And it's like, well, cool. I can tell you my crazy story, because I didn't expect anything like this to happen, whatever, but I'm really grateful for it.
Well, on behalf of me and all the listeners who have enjoyed all of your games and had incredible memories from them, thank you very much for giving us some fantastic memories through the years, and some I imagine some moments where if we'd known you, we would have been cursing at the screen for making things difficult or scary. But from all of us, thank you very much, and thank you for joining us today, Simon. Where can people follow you? You mentioned your YouTube channel then for your stuff. So where can people find out what you're up to and what you're working on?
Okay, yeah, so I don't know whether you can actually catch. I've got a little QR code up on the thing here because I ended up having to create a banner.
Oh, look at that! He's come prepared.
I came to play. Yeah, no, it's one of those kind of things of, I did the expo at Nottingham. I was like, I might as well get a banner because that's what works at expo. So yeah, simonphipps.com, where I've got some of the stuff. At Simon Phipps Art on most of your social medias. I think I'm now on Instagram, Blue Sky, Twitter. I've got a little side art project, which is just sketch cards, which you can find through there because I basically, whilst I'm having coffee, rather than scroll on my phone, I'll draw little cards and take photos and put them online. There's a QR code there. I've got a YouTube channel, which is mainly my prop builds and things. I've got a playlist of a load of interviews I've done, like this one online. And and I've got a load of things coming up. Hopefully, as at the Play Expo in Blackpool towards the end of the year, I think it's going to be on there. And I'm also actually been invited to the Ashbourne Arts Festival in June in Ashbourne in Derby, which started promotion for, and I'll see where it goes from there.
Amazing. Well, thank you very much again for joining us, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with the props and the art in the future, my friend. So thank you once again, and we'll speak to you soon.
If I'm up in York, I'll give you a shout.
Oh, you definitely need to do. Yeah, we'll go do a burger test of the best burgers in York, and we'll get 5. We'll test them.
You
all.
have me at burger. Brilliant.
Okay, man. Thank you.
And thank you everybody for listening. Really appreciate it. Take care.